All right. I believe we're on air, so we'll see what happens here. Maxie, I appreciate the brief introduction. Larry, I appreciate your helping us there. We may have a couple of people pop in on us here, but we'll kind of see what happens. This is using technology from Google+, which I've started getting onto about 8 months ago, I guess, and I've gotten to know quite a number of people on there and doing it for business. We'll talk about more about a little bit later. I'm going to be attempting here to put on some slides. So, Anna, if you can put the slides up here. But before we do that, before we introduce it, let me just start by saying I really am honored to be able to talk to this class. Maxie and I were able to do this class. I see some former students, Rodney. Others who have heard what we had to say. And it's all, there's still a lot of things that are emerging in this space, but it's emerging very, very quickly. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but we'll have about an hour and a half to discuss some things having to do with the entrepreneurialism and the use of Google Plus as an example for being able to develop businesses, because it's remarkable how quickly you can do that. Larry and I, as an example, got to know each other when we did a program at the beginning of the year called Crafty Cooking that Martin Shervington and Ronnie Benser, Chef Dennis Litley did, along with really set up with the creativity and genius of Martin Shervington, who is the Google Plus trainer. And I'll talk a little bit more again about various things here, but it's just we got to know each other because Larry's got 1 million followers on Google Plus, and he does cooking shows. And he'll have people from the UK doing Singaporean cooking. They'll do Spanish type cooking with Spanish language being used and translations. When the translator was in Spain. So it's remarkable all these connections that you can make. So, but what I want to do is I want to get any questions first before you get on. Before we begin? I've been teaching at JBU as an adjunct professor for 5 years now, I believe, and teach the marketing strategies course in the NWA campus. Really enjoy that. But the thing that frustrated me so much when I first got started teaching was I'm not a marketer in the traditional sense. I'm an entrepreneur. I mean, I've started several businesses with partners, and primarily up in Northwest Arkansas, I deal in the Walmart supplier space. So we started a company called Shankle Technologies to help the suppliers analyze retail link data, Walmart's POS data, and we've done some things in the area of. We have a series called Doing Business in Bentonville, which is to help them help the suppliers in Walmart connect. So we'll have speakers in from Walmart, speak to 150, 250 Walmart suppliers. The thing that I've been very intrigued with, though, and have been examining and trying to understand this space with a lot of help from Ronnie, from Martin, from David, and especially just on an ongoing basis with Larry, since we got to know each other doing Crafty Cooking, to be able to see how we utilize this space for everybody's benefit. So to help entrepreneurs, because my passion is helping individuals and entrepreneurs pursue their passion. That's really where it comes down to. And working in 2 different spaces right now. One is a nonprofit space, the other is the for-profit space. In the nonprofit space, Maxie and I will talk about a business model that we put together. I put together the plan A, and he helped me get to a plan B. So you get out of the building and really look at that. On the for-profit side, we just agreed to work with a really, really interesting project that's going to be publicizing Google Glass, which in medicine is a very, very fast-moving area. Dr. John Bennett is leading the charge on that. He's the genius behind that, doing some remarkable things. And we've got a program in Indianapolis in July where doctors are going to be coming in from all over the world to speak, as well as through the technology that we're bringing to Dr. Bennett to be able to have a platform for professionally bringing in doctors from Spain, Italy, China. I mean, it's remarkable. So that's the kind of things that I've just been so excited in doing. And for a 65-year-old guy to step into this kind of space, it's really been a challenge because of trying to take old economy ideas that I grew up with and then implement the web into it. And that's where I was before I went off on a tangent, which was as I started teaching MBA marketing, it just struck me that the books were talking about the old economy ways of doing things, the 4 Ps, all of these traditional things, which are fine. You need that as foundation. But how do I bring in the web? I mean, Joe Wallenchuk made a comment to Maxie, and he said that textbooks are 3 years out of date when they're published. Well, when you're talking about internet time, you can't be out of date. You've got to be doing things that are absolutely state-of-the-art. So I've been struggling for 5 years to really bring to my students what's going on in social media. And that's tough for somebody who thought Twitter was a distraction and Facebook was a waste of my time. And I guess I don't have any friends either. So it's one of those things that, we just kind of said, we've got to, but when Google Plus came along, I got it. And I began introducing it to my class. Before that, we'd introduced some other things. But my classmate, the people, my students, the youngest person in the room is always the technical support for the old guys like me. So let's face it. So if I tried to talk about it a lot in that particular context, there were many, many others that were better than I was. But I tried to blend the business along with the new technology by joining forces with a lot of people. And that's what we'll talk about here with Conduit marketing and collaboration, which is so easy to do these days in technology. The thing that got me going was this book here, which was Google Semantic Search. And y'all have done studies with that. I'm looking at that, getting ready for this class. You've seen Martin and David's video series, and then this afternoon, Maxie's going to do show what we had David and Martin come into the last class we did a few weeks ago in Northwest Arkansas, talking about this. Just a fascinating conversation that I think you'll enjoy. So I think it all comes down to what we'll talk about today, which is this book by Jay Baer. I saw Martin interview Jay Baer, and it really struck me this what he calls utility, Y-O-U, utility, and why it is that, as he says here, why smart marketing is about health, not hype. And then and this other one by a couple of guys from Bain, which is where Mitt Romney was, but that wrote about what they call the ultimate question 2.0. Now, there may be another ultimate question that we know about, but when it comes to business, it's about Net Promoter Score, which is, you sum it up with, would a friend, would you recommend this product or service to a friend or a close business associate? In other words, it's asking, would you risk your reputation to say this is good? And they've actually quantified that in a way to do it, so that it's sweeping the country in terms of businesses, looking at not just surveys about how well you're doing, but what is your Net Promoter Score? So other things we'll talk about. Lots of other books up here and things we can talk about. But I'm going to get into the slides now and start talking. I need to back up and go into that. Okay. Let me have the remote, and I'll. Okay, this is what I'm calling the conduit approach to marketing, and it has to do with working with the with anybody you're talking to. And I'll set it up. By saying this. Let me just make sure I understand how this is working. So it really has to do with selling through conduits rather than selling to prospects, and I'll get into more detail on that. But it's more of a wholesale approach as opposed to a retail approach. In other words, you're not going out there using high intensity promotion, advertising, spending a lot of money on things to make things happen. You're doing it directly with people, and it all comes back to the Net Promoter Score, as you'll see. So, but the thing that sets that up is trust. So it's one-to-many versus one-to-one. So again, a wholesale approach as opposed to retail. So what is a conduit? Let me define that first of all. I define it as an individual who understands who you want to meet and willingly introduces you because they trust your ability to perform and especially not to embarrass them. So I've gone over that enough to be able to say it. But this is one of the reasons that Google Plus resonated with me for so long is that this is something that I've kind of had carrying around and talking about and believing in for many, many years, so that when I saw how the Google community, Plus community was so relationship oriented, it just absolutely resonated with me. And as I began to see people like Martin and Ronnie and David and you know, Chef Dennis Littley and Larry Familier, who's here driving a machine back there looking for his comments come in, the way that they give first, it really, really resonated. So what we want to do is to go in and talk about how this can be applying. One last slide about going back to the 20th century and the old economy. Marketing was about hype, as Jay Bear was saying there. Today, marketing in the 21st century is about health, not hype.
And Larry, if I could make one link here, or Jim, make one link here. I'm just thinking about Larry 40.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
And this, by the way, for those of you who don't know, this is, again, Maxie Carpenter, my partner in crime. Maxie runs Samaritan Community Centers in Northwest Arkansas, which is the largest feeding operation in Northwest Arkansas, and was with Sam Walton for about 17, 18 years before he passed, and then with Walmart another 10 years or so after that.
Thanks, Jim. The link here is to our discussion this morning about networking. And I think the key term here that Jim's sharing with you is it's not about hype anymore, it's about health. Okay, and I'm sitting here thinking already, Kaylee, about cupcakes on a Google Plus platform, because you can reach the world. Okay, I mean, that's literally what we're sitting here talking about, and guess what? It doesn't cost you a dime. Marketing is expensive. Marketing, the new kind of marketing we're talking about, doesn't cost you a dime.
And it's just, it doesn't, again, it's not high energy level, so you don't get that sugar high of all of a sudden you spend $100,000 on an advertising campaign and you see results, decreasing results, albeit as you learn in marketing classes, because things are moving away from, you know, people are blocking television with TiVo and advertising in that way. So you don't get that kind of a sugar high of a rush. It's a longer term relationship development strategy. And there are ways to be able to approach this. I like this verse right here. I think it sums up the Conduit approach to marketing. Agree with each other, love each other, be deep-spirited friends, don't push your way to the front, don't sweet-talk your way to the top, put yourself aside and help others get ahead. Don't be obsessed with getting your own advantage. Forget yourself long enough to lend a helping hand. I think that really is so, when I saw that, that just to me resonated, that encapsulates in a very old and wise verse what it is that what we're doing, the modern day part of marketing is. It's about relationships, not about so much about transactions, certainly not first. So search is marketing. And I ask you, what does that mean? Based on y'all's study and y'all's use of the internet, why is it today that search is marketing?
Because the internet, the browsers track everything that you search, and so in a sense, and then they bring in advertisers, posts on your screen that we all get and we all hate, and it brings up what we want to see based on our search.
Yep. And what's everybody trying to do when it comes to search and comes to Google these days? To buy something? Okay, they're searching to look for something. Oh, find something? Yeah. Yeah, 70% of purchase today start at the internet, and so if 70% of the purchases are first going to Google to be able to do a search or one of the search engines, what is it that they're looking for? Looking for information, and what shows what is it that people go to first? If they're looking for information, where are they going to go once that search comes up?
I think they also want to see what other people are saying about what it is they're looking for.
Exactly. Right. And so how do they know where to go? What triggers them to go someplace, to hit some particular link? Search results, absolutely.
Jim?
Yes. Hey, Larry.
Yes. Sorry to disturb you. You could switch to the class because we have some comments coming up.
Oh, okay. That's okay. There we go.
Okay, great.
Now this is
Great picture, Jim.
okay. Now this is again. There are going to be questions that are coming in from all over the place. We've got a lot to cover, so Larry, I'll just take a few as they come along, but feel free to jump in. So is there anything in particular? Let's see, it says John Ellis is asking the question, so pay it forward. You build trust by helping first? That's his question. So John Ellis, thank you very much. John's one of, again, our partners in this this venture that we're doing to be able to create connectivity with the doctor on Google Glass. So,
Where's John at?
John is in Portland, Oregon. And John is, what John does is the technology backbone behind for the communication. So we'll talk about all that at some future time. Yeah, pay it forward is absolutely what it's all about, John. And it's and the way it happens is it starts by giving first. So I'll get into the slideshow on that. Larry, anything else that you want to pop up?
Yes, Scott Skillproud.
Scott, hey, Scott is in Seattle, Washington. Scott's worked with me, helping me out. The good thing about Scott, he does the Scott treatment, and what that means is Scott will do post-production, so that when I'll do, or people will do a presentation like this, he's the guy that makes me less nervous as I give presentations, because I know he's going to edit out all the things that I've messed up on. So thank you, Scott. Scott said that 70% of purchases start with the internet. I believe I heard that, and you'll hear it this afternoon. I believe David said that, and it's one of those things. Remember that 85% of the statistics that you hear spoken from the dais are made up on the spot. So who's going to check it? But hey, but if David Amerlin said it,
Very, very distinct.
and I've heard that number being 65 and 22 and all that. Now, seriously, David is really on top of it. But he put that in. There could be a lot more behind that. So. Chef Dennis Lidley, Chef is in Orlando. Chef was with us in the Crafty Cooking program where we tested the effectiveness of using this network for Google Plus. And Martin's been bugging me lately to be able to take the next steps on that. So we're going to be doing some follow-up on that. But he asks, I make meat of most of my purchases other than food on the internet. Yeah, I mean, it's the way it works. I mean, the chef will go over to Sam's Club and buy a lot of product because of the quality and that, but so many of us and so many, just like Chef, that's where they depend on, and increasingly. I mean, I've got on my website, I have something about the growth of Amazon relative to Walmart, showing a lot of things converging here. So Walmart definitely, that's why they're really kicking up their .coms, because they want to see it going into, they know that they've got to compete with Amazon. There's so many different ways that I can go off on this to get back into my marketing class, and let me just continue on. So let's go to the next slide. I'll blow through that. Okay, so search is marketing. We'll go ahead from there. And talk a little bit about Google Semantic Search. David Amerlin wrote this book, Google Semantic Search. Came out in July. I got to know David about the first part of September, and he had 22,000 followers. And I caught him about 2 weeks before David, as I call a hockey stick. He went from 22,000 followers to 10 times that, probably more by now, because of this book and a variety of other things. I mean, David really is on top of what's happening. And what David concludes, and the idea behind Google Semantic Search and the importance of it is Google's got, you may have heard of the things called Panda and Penguin and other ways that they're using to fight back against the SEO people and search engine optimization people who are gaming the system. So we were talking earlier about how do people search? People want to get to the top of Google. So the first page of Google, the first ranking Google, and companies were paying enormous amounts of money to get there. So the search engine optimization people would game the system. I mean, there's legitimacy out there, but there's no as black hat, white hat operations. So the idea was how do we manage to get to the top? And people were always promising, if you hire us to do your work, we'll get you to the top of Google. Well, what happened was Google got tired of it, and they want their customers are the people searching. Obviously, you get enough people searching, and you can also sell AdWords and make money there. But they wanted the primary client of the people searching to have results that they were looking for. So they started algorithms and developed, very simplistically, developed Google semantic search. The idea was that it was going to enable people to get the right, they changed it from being more of a quantitative to more qualitative. In other words, it began working towards semantics, which is meaning, which means how do you find what people are saying and recommending to their friends and engaging in the community. And they used to use backlinks and some other ways. Now they looked at it really comes back to the Net Promoter Score. How do people recommend it? So David based this on starting with trust, going to and adding to that reputation and also authority. So it comes down to these three words: that if you trust somebody, if you believe in their reputation and they speak with authority, and they do this on a continuing basis, and people in the community are coming in and they're commenting and they're engaging and they're sharing, they're doing things with their friends on that, and a lot of followers, just a lot of different things that come about, but it's all taking things back to where it was in the village square of the old times, that you would go out and you talk to your friends and say, what do you recommend? Well, that's what they began capturing with Google semantic search. And what happened when these changes started taking place is people started falling out of the rankings. In fact, some people like JCPenney's, they got banned from the internet for, in Google search for 3 months. That may, again, be simplistic, but they weren't able to, because it was seen that their people that worked for them were gaming the system, they penalized JCPenney. So JCPenney very quickly went in and tried to eliminate those black hat things that had been done to them. I don't think Penny's was, they just wanted to get to the top. So people were doing whatever they could. So it comes back to trust, reputation, and authority. And one of the things that, there's ways it's measured and all that we won't get into. But the thing that amazed me was this. I started going back to, what we're really talking about here is the golden rule. It's the golden rule about taking care of people to gain trust, reputation, and authority. So what is the golden rule? Somebody want to read that and then talk a bit about it?
One should treat others as one would want others to treat them.
That's right. And so what does that mean? In a few words. Somebody explain what that means in real practice, real life.
Treat others the way you want to be treated.
Yeah, and why is that, you think?
Respect.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? It's one of those kind of things that's so ingrained in us. We hear this in kindergarten that it's like, of course. And yet, how many people don't? How many people go back to the world's most popular radio station, WIIFM, and what's in it for me? It's all about self-interest. Self-interest is core. So to be able to move away from first focusing on your own self-interest and looking at others and trying to help them first, that kind of goes way back, but it also goes against what we do in this modern culture, which goes to transactions very quickly. And that's why it just hit me as I was preparing for this class. It wasn't something I understood before, but it really made me realize that the thing I love about Google+, and you'll find that I'm so into Google+, and maybe none of you have used it and you really believe in Twitter, and all that's fine, and Facebook, but the great thing about Google semantic search is that the community is all based on trust, reputation, authority. There's some self-interest there, that recognizing that the more that you can engage and do things and be consistent with what you do, then you can score higher in Google. So sure, everybody wants to do that. But the thing that's happened is this community is being led by guys like Martin and David, Ronnie, Chef Lidley, Larry. I could name so many who give first. They show it all the time. All this free material Martin's put out there on Plus Your Business and Plus Your Reach, and David engages. If you look at the Google Plus and start following them, there were the 3 guys, 4 guys, and 5 guys that I really follow on a regular basis. They are all givers. It's one of those things. I remember somebody on one of their shows, when they did a hangout on there, kept trying them to monetize, to sell something. And they were just so resistant to that because they knew they wanted to set the foundation of just, it was all about trust, it was all about helping, and it was all about engagement, having things going on. And they wanted to and they've instilled that in this community, which is terrific. So success in search then comes from following the golden rule. And that's kind of the bottom line. Yes, Max?
There are so many great connections here. I just sit back here just wanting to jump up and down about this. But think about this. Who would have ever thunk, okay, that the internet was going to be a tool that you could use to bring community back into the culture in a very real way? Because it gets harder and harder to establish communities on the ground in your communities because of all the chaos and all the destruction, all the distraction. And so, you think about that. Then you think about this, which is really pretty amazing. I used to really enjoy at certain times watching TV or listening to the radio. I hate it now because it's more about the commercials than it is about the content I'm actually looking to see. Well, guess what? On the internet, I can control that. I can eliminate all of that and focus only on what's really important to me. And that's really what we're talking about here. A conduit through which you can focus on what's really important to you. And oh, by the way, if it's important to you, you can absolutely count on there are hundreds and thousands of people out there that what's important to you is important to them as well. I mean, we've got people locking in on this stuff. I remember, Jim, the first time we went out and did our first broadcast.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Some guy from Italy sends me a message.
Yeah, Nazim. Well trained.
Some guy from India. Another one from Germany. And I'm going, what have I done? I'm out there. I'm really out there. David's back here because he doesn't want to be out there. Okay, well, guess what, buddy? They can still see. Okay? I mean, it's the neatest of the neat because there's no risk involved. I have people all the time saying to me, gosh, I can't believe, like, for instance, I do everything online. I pay bills online. Why do I pay bills online? Because I ain't going down to that office anymore and stand there and be driven insane by people who really don't care much about me. They're just doing that job. Okay? And people say to me, you mean you trust your information? I said, they got it anyway. What are you talking about? They know everything they need to know and want to know about me. They know. It's out there.
You might as well
Who
be
am I
consistent.
fooling?
Yep.
I'm out there. Whether I like it or not, I'm out there.
Yeah, you may not remember what you said 6 months ago, but Google does.
It's really neat. It's really neat stuff.
All right, so let's go ahead on that. And let me just emphasize, and again, before I forget about saying it, about a conduit is an example of a conduit would be that you're at a party and you're talking to somebody. You just met somebody. It's a networking party. You just met them for the first time. I mean, the question comes up, what do you do? And have you ever had it happen to you? Maybe I'm just paranoid, but it happens to you that as soon as you tell that person what you do, their eyes start to go over your shoulder and look over your head, and you start gazing the room and start looking for the next moment that they can attack. I mean, it's just, and once they zero in on somebody, you can see it, their eyes all of a sudden light up again. They stick out their hand and say, thank you very much, I enjoyed meeting you. And they're gone. Well, take a look at the fact that is such a waste, because that person, whoever it is that got blown off like that, from that person that was sales-oriented and transaction-oriented, the person who got blown off probably has 200, 300, 400, maybe a whole lot more connections, people on their Rolodex, the old style, you can tell how old I am, Rolodex in their database, contacts database, and LinkedIn and the others. So we're going to go through this process here that talks about how to first set up that relationship so that anybody you meet could potentially be somebody who could be helpful to you out there, but you can't go into it with an attitude of what am I going to get out of this. You've got to start with what can I do for them first. So just want to make sure that I made that point.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah, Larry.
I think you forgot about us. because we would like to see the class. So if you will toggle between the presentation and the
Okay, so when we're having conversations, Anna, we need to switch over to the
yeah,
class.
you will have to come on the screen share.
All right, you need to go here. So I didn't give very good driving instructions to Anna, so I apologize.
Okay.
So that's on screen share right there. What we need to do. Whoops. Okay, what about down there? Okay, you can tell I started using computers back a long time ago, but it's still this new stuff surprised me. Ronnie Benser has I'm part of this Hangout helper group and master group, and I'm afraid I'm a failed student, so he doesn't want to claim me. So Larry, was there another point you wanted to make? I'm going to go back to the slides now.
No, I just wanted to remind you.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. It's one of the great things also about teaming up with guys like Larry. Again, he's in Trinidad, to be able to do this, because you want to make, as Ronnie likes to say, you want to make the technology become invisible, so that when you're making a presentation like this, everything runs smoothly. I remember the first time I did a Hangout, a live one, I did it for a JBU class, and I'd only known David Amerlin for a few weeks at that point, and I had jokingly said when I first started meeting with him, and it was just remarkable, this back and forth conversation we had. I mean, here I am engaging with somebody who's well known, and then I made a joking comment to him, well, I'd love to hang out with you sometime, and he said, sure, I'd be glad to. We're working into the calendars. And I felt like the cocky little league pitcher who had, found out that his next assignment was to pitch at Yankee Stadium. I mean, here I am. And yet, 3 or 4 weeks later, we actually did a hangout with a bunch of students up there, and David was gracious enough to come in. Ronnie had also done the same thing. But Ronnie was running the engine room and driving the ship, and it caused me to just be able to focus on that, being the host of David in my class. So, and we were, they were nice enough to come in this last time as well, along with some other people. So let's go back to the slides. Thanks, Larry. Again, just feel free to jump in and tell us if we've got comments. I know that we may have some people pop in. So
yeah, actually, we do have some comments.
All right, when they show up, just let me know. We'll go ahead and I'm going to go through just a few more slides, and then they can be watching, and you can decide when's the right time to do that. Okay, so treat others as one would want them to treat us. That helps us in Google semantic search. Okay, this is what's not the golden rule, what I just talked about a moment ago. The person at the networking party. What the golden rule in practice is using conduit marketing is this. You want to have a relationship before you go to a transaction. Now, we all want to get to a point of having transactions, because if we don't, eventually we'll starve out. I mean, I used to work for Club Corporation of America in Dallas, and we had about 250 properties, Pinehurst Resort, Firestone Country Club, and that. And I was the deal maker and working for the self-made billionaire who created $1 billion fortune with no liabilities and no personal or legal, any personal or company debt. And it was just a remarkable situation that they were able to do. But we did it, and I put together a number of projects for them going out there in development, either on top of office buildings or acquisitions of resorts and that. And it was all about relationships. It was taking care of those clubs that we had done before, that we had created. It was taking care of the board of governors that we had, whether it's Henry Ford in Detroit, and the Renaissance Center Club that we did. It's all about references. So when I was trying to do a new deal, then they would be able to call back to any people that they knew around the country and say, who are you? So that's what it is. Would you recommend us to a friend? Net Promoter Score. So have a relationship, whereas banking business in Wall Street, for instance, it used to be based on relationships, the old bankers who would deal with their customers. Well, then there's a great book about it by Ken Arletta, but how the traders began to take over. And so things went, and so much money started to be making in trading that it was no longer about the relationship. It was about which bank can get me the best deal at the lowest number of basis points compared to somebody else. So it moved from the relationship to transactions. There's certain ways that these things tend to be moving back, but certainly in this area that we're talking about, changing. So how does that happen? You've got to give first. That sets it up, the golden rule. Give first to somebody else. Create, in effect, an implied obligation that somebody, because you help them, might help you. And I emphasize the point, might. I mean, there are a lot of takers in this world. And believe me, you will get euchred, a great British term about taking advantage of. And it happens, expect it. I mean, all things may work together for good, but remember that together is the key word on that. Because all things don't necessarily feel good. I mean, it may be happening like a baby getting a shot. It doesn't feel good, and all it knows is it hurts. But there is some benefit that's happening there. We don't always know what's going to be resulting from that. But if you give first, you start this cycle of goodness that can really, really come back to you. And I think overall, certainly I look back, and it's one of the benefits, few benefits of getting to be my age at 65, is I can look back and I see things that I was on a track to do something that I thought was the right thing to do, and somehow or another it just got ripped up. I mean, I've had a front row seat at 5 economic booms and now 5 busts, and so I've seen a lot of tragedy happen from others, had a few of my own. As you'll take a look, so, we've had, you have successes, you have things that aren't so successful, but look at it in totality and seeing that even from the wreck of things that have happened. I was talking to somebody about that friend of mine this morning, that you just take a look at it. Sometimes we're at the edge of totally running out of gas, you're out of fumes, you have no resources. Sometimes you're coasting because even the fumes are no longer in the tank. But if you persist in the right way, things do work out. So let's just, again, easy for me to distract myself on so many subjects we could talk about. But give first, help the other person succeed. Try to find out what it is that they're trying to do. And what I do is, I'm not real sure, okay, so I have this in the next slide. I wanted to make sure it was there. Listen for frustration. Try to find out what in the world is it that's keeping them from being able to do what they're trying to do. Is it capital? Is it human resources? Is it understanding of technology? I did a project put together about 10 years ago in Northwest Arkansas called Shankle Technologies, which does retail link analysis for the Walmart suppliers with some partners who really knew how to make this thing work. And not to go into the entire story, it just turned out that it was the thing that the suppliers were having the most problem with, because the Walmart data, which is called Retail Link, was so clunky and so difficult in their system to get. So Rick Fogg managed to make a program, a system that could analyze that. So that became a successful company. So we began, and one of the other frustrations was it's tough enough in your companies to get the word out to all your employees about what you're doing. Think about, when you're in a situation like Walmart is and Sam's Club, where you base everything on vendor-managed inventory, which means that the vendors are actually doing a lot of work you normally would. Well, you have extended employees in effect there. They're not employees because Walmart doesn't pay them. But you have to coordinate and communicate with that. And I saw that and I heard that. Plus, I was looking for a way to, on the cheap, promote Shankle Technologies. So we blended those things and we created what's called Doing Business in Bentonville. And that's a monthly series, 10 years old now, that we use to communicate back and forth from usually a Walmart speaker talking to 150, 250 suppliers out there in the audience. So that's the way you do it. Just listen for frustration, because out of frustration becomes opportunity. Ask the question, how can I help you? Again, coming back to give first, help first. Transactions, like I said, might result, but don't be disappointed if they don't. You never know where it's going to light. You never know whether it's somebody you help, who helps somebody. It could be it coming out of. It's just, I look back and see where these things have come from, and it's just incredible. Again, no quid pro quo. No, don't be looking for what's in it for me. Process steps then to go to this. There's several steps that I go through as I look at this, and so if you want to try to quantify it and say, here's how you do it, this is the way I do it. Have a give first attitude by actively listening for ways to help. I'm not going to belabor that anymore. Cultivate win-win relationships without ever expecting the transaction to happen. Again, we've talked about that. Your posture is buyer, not seller. Now, what do you think I mean by that? What is posture, and what do I mean by positioning yourself as a buyer, not a seller? I mean, if you're a seller walking into somebody's office, what's your level of anxiety?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be nervous. You're going to be thinking about what you want to sell to them, say to them. You've never been in their environment. So if you're, that's a nervous thing. Whereas if you're the buyer, if somebody comes into your office, what's your posture? That's strength, right? I mean, you're in a position that you have somebody coming to you, supplicant, hat in hand, hoping that they can get you to be able to buy what they've got. So if you're looking at everything, that you as an individual have a unique competitive advantage because you're positioned as a unique individual with certain strengths. And I know Maxie's really, we really work on strengths finders, and you'll get into that. If you really focus on what those strengths are, then it can help you with what is your purpose, what is it that you are as a unique individual, where should you focus your attention, and it helps you to understand what you're not good at. So again, the way I like to operate is to find team members who are best in class in that particular area that I'm no good at and don't like, and they come in and they take care of that. They have fun and jump out of bed looking forward to doing things I hate. That's great. It's a great relationship. So you want to be looking at it that whatever it is you're out there, and as you're talking to people, you may well have something that they need. You know, they may have something you want, but try to look at it that whatever it is that's unique about you, you're a tribe leader, to use Seth Godin's words. There is a tribe out there waiting for you to arrive or to be available so that they can welcome you because they've been waiting for what you have and they will follow you. And with the internet, Google communities, and some things that Larry and John and I are working on, have the opportunity to be able to have communication tool on the internet. Okay, so yes, Larry.
Yeah, I think the slides. Okay.
Okay, thanks. So it's more. Question about it's more important to know what's in the other person's head than it is for them to know what's in yours. I mean, that may be baffling, but anybody, as we get that back up there, is there anybody who has okay, so anybody who's got a comment about that? More important to know what's in the other person's head than it is for them to know what's in yours? Again, what you're trying to do is, I had a boss who said this when I was at Club Corp, and he was saying it's fortunately to somebody else, but he said they were new to the company, and that's what he said. He said, Scott, for the first 3 months that you work for me, it's more important for you to know what's in my head than for me to know what's in yours. And then I'll start listening to you. But right now, you know, the rookie, the newbie, the person who's just come in, you have very little credibility with the people who are already there. In fact, there's a lot of skepticism as to whether you know what's going on. So always consider that you need to ask questions and hear. I don't care whether it's the janitor in the building. I mean, they're observing and seeing things that you've never thought about. I mean, the two greatest lessons I learned in business school the first day, you know, the first one was, you know, define the problem. You know, don't work on solutions, define the problem, and we'll talk about that in any canvas. But it's when we talk about the second one, which is the power of teams, where they can come in. I mean, again, not to go into a lot of details on it, but as an individual, with me trying to understand 3 cases that are 50 pages long to get ready for the next day's class, doing it myself, I got only so far into it. When I started to get together with my teammates that night, in the class the next day, hearing other study groups talking about it, hearing the conversation in the class from all kinds of individuals with all kinds of backgrounds and experiences, and then the professor at the end sum up. I mean, you learn things by listening to other people that bring context to it that you never considered. So find out what's in their head.
Jim?
Yes, Larry.
Martin just popped in.
All right, well, let's go ahead and invite Martin in. His time's valuable, and you know, I appreciate his friendship. So we'll get Martin. Larry, do you want to pull him in, or are we going to be just do it like this? Show the class?
He's in the house.
All right, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go out in front so people can actually see what I look like. Yes, Mr. Shervington, welcome.
I think you might be having some.
All right, well, we'll get to, yeah, let me just say again, I met Martin. Martin was very obviously somebody in the community that I needed to get to know, because when I walked into Google Plus, I wanted to find out what it was that it was all about. What could I learn from it? So the person who was obviously the trainer there was Martin. So I started stalking Martin, like I had did some of the others, and he began to engage. So Martin, are you available to tell us a little bit about Google Plus, your views, and what the significance are of being able to go first? He may still be at it. You're either
I think he's come in.
I'm sorry, what?
I think he's still trying to come in.
Okay. Martin came over to, he's from the UK, Wales actually, and he came to the US to do some things, getting ready for a conference and being with some people for 6 months in January, and I suppose he's back in the UK now. I'm not real sure. Last time I saw him, he was on a beach, and you'll see that he was in La Jolla. He was at the social media marketing conference in San Diego, talking to them about about Google Plus and some other things that are happening in the community as he observes them. So he's got several 100,000 followers.
I think he's still in.
Okay. I'll tell you what, Larry, if you can separately talk to him and find out when he can come in, we'll go ahead.
Oh, here he is.
Hey! Martin Sherman. Well, I'd like you to talk about me, but I'm afraid of what you say. I think, hey, where are you these days? Are you back in the UK?
No, I'm in San Diego.
So good. Well, your visa's still holding up then, but you should be going
Can't you tell from this? I'll be back in.
Okay. Well, tell Martin. You and David are going to show y'all's video from our last class this afternoon, but just kind of take this on as far as the giving nature of the community and why that's important, really, in life as well as in business, and your approach to it.
Sure. Hello, everyone. How are you?
Good.
It's nice. I like being back on it. It's good. Google Plus has enabled a lot of people together that wouldn't have otherwise been. And it's not just people looking at social media marketing, people looking at social SEO or website design or cooking or food blogging, and then you start to just spread out. It's everything. The whole world is basically available and accessible. And one of the things that's made a big difference is that you use Hangouts. We use these. So myself and Larry, I don't know if Larry's there. He looks like he's got a parrot. He's got a parrot on his shoulder to me. I don't know what's going on. Unless he's really still. Oh, there he is. So I've known Larry for over 2.5 years. And we met in a Google Hangout. And one of the things that you found in the early days, in particular, and the earlier days on Google Plus, is it's like all the doors of the world were thrown open, and you could basically run around all of the different Hangouts and just chat with people. There were no barriers. You didn't have to belong to anything apart from beyond Google Plus. That was what you had in common. That was regularly what we were talking about, and it was a way of meeting a lot of people and connecting. Then, what happened in December 2012 is that Google created a bit of tech called Google Communities or Google Plus Communities, and a lot of the people that had found each other in the Hangouts then went off and focused attention on passion areas. So if somebody was into Star Wars, then they'd start up a Star Wars community, and that would thrive and bring members in. So there's this concept that communities, the thing that's made Google Plus different. And it means that we've all managed to find the people that we relate to, that we like, that we can then find more out about them, so know them, and then trust them. And what you find is that a lot of people are collaborating on projects. So myself and the Plus Your Business team, we're working on so many projects, and it's just easy. The technology makes it easy. The transparency, the openness makes it really easy. And I think that that's the thing that, if we look at it, it's not just about the system of Google+, it's about the culture, and it's about learning the platform, it's about the behaviors, and then the psychology of how we feel to be part of this. And it's exceptional. And I think that when people get involved, you realize that it isn't just about clicking the buttons and being, it's not just another social channel for people. There's actually a global sense of community that's going on. I mean, and the same with the relationship with Jim. I mean, we've worked on a project together, which was put together as a case study, and you get together in Hangouts, and then you plan and you utilize the leverage of the Google Plus stream with micro communities that can build around content, and the engagement is very deep. And if you have 100, 200, 300 people, that can spread out to thousands of people. And one of the effects is that the community influences search results. And that's one of the things that's quite profound. But really, it's the people that are saying this is great content that then enables that content to surface in Google search. But if I go down that road, we're going to get into serious geeky territories for 9 a.m. in Pacific Standard Time.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'd like to. Larry's back there doing all the work making this happen. I'd like to bring Larry into the conversation in this area while Martin's here, Larry, and just give your observations of what Martin said there. Notice you're still muted, so yeah, here we go.
Yeah, I had to mute because there's an echo. When we speak, you guys run out of echo.
Mute us then.
Yeah, you guys have Okay. Okay, great. Like Martin said, we met on here about 2.5 years ago, and the platform is the technology is so easy, and the community that's around us, that we have built around our interests. I mean, everybody is so in tune, sharing, giving, building authority, as what you said, building trust, most importantly, and this whole platform, I'm just so thankful that I've met folks like Martin, Mike, you, Jim. It's what more can I say? It's just been great. It's just been great.
And can I just add?
Yeah, please just you guys got another 2 minutes.
What Larry's done is enable to build a community around him for both himself, which is Trinidadian food, and he is the Trinidadi. And the other aspect is he's helped other people showcase themselves using Google Plus Hangouts. Hangouts on Air in particular, which is what this one is. And he's building up his YouTube channel, he's building up his profile, but also making it about other people. So he helps people learn how to cook dishes in the kitchen, which gives them exposure. That then gives them a new audience. It gives them access to Larry's audience. So the idea, the collaboration is really what can we do that enables people to have access to us and feel that they've got the connection, how we can build up the profiles of other people, and how we can have engaging, enjoyable events that basically just bring the community together. And this is the thing, there's no preset, this is how you've got to use Google+. You can just experiment and find out what works for you. And that's what Larry's been doing for the whole duration, is different types of shows, finding what people respond to, also different sort of ways of doing Hangouts and experimenting with how you can bring different feeds in, different camera angles. And there's a lot going on Google have given us an opportunity of saying, look, there's the canvas. Go off and paint what you want, and we'll have a look at that. And that's what's going on. There's an opportunity to be creative, but there's a big business opportunity to become authoritative. And that's something which we've alluded to, is that not only do you get a profile, so you can have, like Larry's got over 1 million people following him, so people can look at that and go, wow, that's great for looking at sponsorship opportunities, it's all of those things there. But it's also about how the algorithm perceives Larry's activity, how it perceives my activity, and we are building up a profile, essentially, because this is an identity service. We author our content. So one of the things, and that comes from Eric Schmidt in 2011, he said, Google Plus is an identity service. So when you start to see that every piece of content you put out is a way of communicating to the world your interests, you find that starts to build up over time the points of reference as to what you're to be trusted on, what you've got a reputation for when other people share, and therefore what you are an authority in. And it can be on several subjects.
Great, Martin. And Scott has a question.
Hold on, I've got to bring it up. I've got a blue box, Jim.
Jim?
Jim, that's a question for you, surely.
Yeah.
I can answer, but you know, I'll just keep on rabbiting on. I'm sure everyone wants to hear from you.
Thank you. I engaged, by the way, Anna, who was the technical support person here for JBU, and I apologize. She had to dive into the fire, so she's doing a good job of being able to keep up with me. So Scott Scowcroft lives in Seattle. Scott says, what 21st century core competencies should marketing professionals strive to achieve? How is this different, if at all, than the core competencies of the 20th century? Boy, Scott, I tell you what, you asked tough questions, and we talked a little bit about that before. And man, we could go off on a 9-week course on that. But anybody want to make a comment about that?
I just noticed they're all scared to death.
Yeah, yeah, they know they're talking to the world. Maxie, how about yourself? Why don't you jump in on the
Well, I tell you, the marketing, the concept of marketing is really changed. It's not about advertising anymore. There are still a lot of marketing professionals today that are still striving to influence the marketplace by linking it with advertising, but it's not about that. Marketing is simply this. Just boil it down to simply this. You have to be an expert at telling your story. You have to know how to tell your story. And once you've learned how to tell your story, you have to tell that story over and over and over and over again so many times that when the issue that your story addresses comes up, you're the first person somebody thinks of to help them with that issue. And you're hearing a lot now about personal branding in the marketplace, okay? And there's a lot of misconceptions out there about personal branding and what that really looks like. You know, how do I create the brand of me? And in my opinion, and gosh, I know Martin weighs in on this. I know everybody's got a different opinion, but in my opinion, it's how well do you tell your story? I mean, you can go to my website and my story is there, and it's consistent through every single page of the website. It's consistent with how I reflect myself in this classroom. It's consistent with how I reflect myself in the classroom at JBU. It's consistent with how I reflect myself in my workplace at the Samaritan Community Centers. It's going to be consistent when I go to Walmart in a month and spend time talking to 1,000 store managers about the Walmart culture and how it's evolved. It's going to be the same consistent reflection there. It's going to be the same. And so the bottom line is it's about having your footprint in as many places as you possibly can, both physically on the ground and on the internet, and that footprint looks the same everywhere it's at. And that's marketing. I mean, boiling it down. And now, I've got a guy that teaches marketing, okay?
I'll play one on the internet.
and I know he'll tell you that it's about how do you tell your story. It is the story you tell, the same story you tell every single time you show up.
So true. I mean, remember, Google does not forget. So, you know, be consistent. Kick it back over for some final words, Martin. Anything that you want to add to this as we move into this continuing segment?
Yeah, I think that what we're seeing is a increase in the need for people and businesses to be open and transparent, and we can see this. We can see this wave in Twitter, in particular, and you can see when people don't do it well, they'll get jumped on because the world has got access to them. With Google+, I'd say it's even more so. And you'll find one of the reasons is, again, because you've got Hangouts and you have an event thread and you have comments on the event thread live that are occurring that people can pull in and see, and you get exposed to that. So one of the things is that you want to be open and expose yourself to the the world in a way which allows your story to be felt, to be experienced, for people to relate to it. And I think that I don't. Is it John that was just talking? I can't see him. Where's he? Where's he? Let's see. Oh, everything you're saying, and I think that we've got an echo again. Gives people the opportunity to not only increasingly blog, that's one of the things, because every post is a microblog, but to find a community that relate to them. So one of the things that I've had to do and almost slightly reconcile on my personal brand is I do stand-up comedy. And some people will look and go, crikey, that's a bit different, that's a bit over there when you talk about Google+, and it's like, well, actually, it's me. It's still all part of me. So I have to be open and transparent and say, well, look, the videos, if you want to know the sort of jokes I tell, and sometimes they're a little bit on the edge, but they're on the YouTube channel. And if you relate to me, then that's great. And if you don't, it's okay. There's lots of other people in the world that you can. And I think that you go through almost a journey. So coming back to Scott's comment, is there is definitely a process of increasingly feeling comfortable with who you are, with what you're doing, with the branding. I think that there's a need for understanding how we build relationships. I think communication skills. I think understanding what we do when things don't work for us, how we deal with that on an individual level. All of the old, emotional intelligence skills, if they were at the end of the last 20th century, they're still very much there. And I think Google+ in particular allows you to find your voice and allows you to feel comfortable in having those conversations. And at the same time, every day, it's an open global network, so you experience different points of view. So I think it's encouraging us to start to take on multiple perspectives, to be kinder, to try and respond as best as we can in all situations. We have time on Google+. Instead of it just being people's thoughts and tweeting all the time, we can make comments, we can edit those comments. We don't just have to give them out. So I think that there's a behavioral shaping. I don't think there is a behavioral shaping which is occurring by people that are on Google+, and collaboration and finding the ones that you relate to is all central to it. So Scott, relationships, personal emotional intelligence type qualities like understanding how to manage emotions. Also, then we go into straightforward business stuff. How we understand SEO, how we understand content creation, content marketing. All of these things are opportunities for us to explore.
Yeah, Larry, any last comments you want to make, and then I'll take it back and have a wrap up on that as well.
In which case, I'm folks. I've got another interview. So about something the rock. I'm quite excited.
All right.
Nice.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming in.
Right.
Larry, any further thing you want to say before I take that back?
It was great.
It was great.
But I'm still getting the echo. Oh, it's gone. This has been a great experience here, Jim. I love what you're doing with the classroom, the seminars. I think this is my second one coming in, and I can't stress enough what Martin just said. Build relationships, authority, trust. That is key to Google+. I don't know if anyone in the class there are on Google+, but if you're not, join up, because it will literally change your life. Trust me, it has changed mine. I was able to pursue my passion, which is cooking, and I found my voice and audience here on Google+. So that's it.
Thanks, Larry.
Larry, just we're going to continue on for a few minutes, and with you, Larry, if you can come. I know you're going to be on Chef Dennis's show here very soon, so you'll need to pop out. But you find your voice. But Larry, I need to say, was also a very high-tech person. I mean, he got his degree in computer science at the University of Maryland, and then worked for 30 years in Baltimore in IT services with a big utility before going back to his home country as a U.S. citizen, but to be able to pursue his passion. So it's just great to be able to team up with Larry on some things exciting that we're doing, and see him just how we're working in collaboration with others to be able to cause everybody to benefit from it. Larry, thanks so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're welcome, buddy.
Okay. Let me, one thing that too we may want to consider doing. I mean, I don't know whether it's possible. There's so much in this subject to be able to go into great depth on, and so I see Rodney over here who's taken my class before, and he doesn't want to do it for sure. But hopefully, if you live down here in Little Rock, hopefully we can use some of these technologies like Google Plus in the classroom, so that you can be here at your desk listening to lectures from the Maxie and me as we do the various courses up there. We get into detail. So let's go back to the slides. Any comments or questions that y'all have at this point? We've got about 20 minutes, and I want to go through a pretty quick exercise when it comes to Lean Canvas on something Maxie and I are doing. But let's go ahead and finish up the slides. Ask everyone you meet, what are you trying to achieve? Yes, I'm sorry.
So
I asked the question and didn't let anybody answer. So.
For your point number 4, what you're essentially talking about is it basically you're in the information gathering phase. So is that?
Let's see if I can get back there. I want to find it too.
When you were saying that it's not really important about.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're exactly right, Rodney. It's information gathering. It's finding out what everybody out there's got a different perspective, knowledge, experience, etc. than you have. So, it's like the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. We are so different in ways that we don't even realize that we're different. That you can't assume everybody knows what you know. That's why you do market research, is to be able to understand what consumer insights you can get by asking people. So that's really what it is. You're gathering consumer insights by asking those questions.
Jim, in response again also to that, Rodney, the best way to build relationships is to listen. It is a lost art. It is an art that's being killed all over the media. I don't know how many of you watch Fox News or CBS or ABC or any of those pundit channels. When you get into, they have the political pundits on there, and they're just shouting over each other. They're shouting each other down. They're trying to get their point across. There's no respect. There's no dignity. There's no interaction there that adds value for anyone. Okay, and I'm telling you, some of the best relationship builders are listeners, and the way they do that is they become masters at asking questions, and then listening for the response. And trust me, if you are interacting with someone who has some baggage that they're really carrying around, or an issue, or a pain, or whatever it may be, and you know how to ask the right questions and then just listen, they'll tell you everything you need to know. They will tell you everything. And it's just, it is, to me, it is the core component in building relationships is do you know how to listen? Do you know how to listen not only for the verbal communication, but for the nonverbal communication? Because there's 70% more of what they're trying to get to you in the nonverbal than there is in the verbal.
One of my difficulties teaching is that my wife Gwen is a junior high school teacher. She's excellent at it. I always felt like when I first started, we had to get all the information from each chapter in the book conveyed in the classroom. And I just, it was truly a drinking out of a fire hydrant kind of an approach. And that's where it's so difficult for these subjects. I mean, there's so many ways, Maxie and I can both, I mean, y'all can too, as we begin to engage and have things back, that we can take these, trails out of trails out of trails, and there's so much depth in this. So that's what makes it fun. It also makes it challenging teaching. But I've got a lot of things on these slides. I'd just love to dive in and tell you so much. But we've got about, again, time's going. So the questions are, what are you trying to achieve, and what does success look like? What metric? How do you measure success? And it's the question I've got of the supplier community as an example, and following up on crafty cooking is, how do you keep score? I mean, so you try to find out from somebody, tell me when you've achieved what you're trying to achieve, what does that look like? Numbers, words, pictures. Tell me what it is that looks like. And so I can see Maxie grinning back there. He's got to say something.
I got to weigh in on that. This is so critical. I'm teaching a class right now on mission, vision, values. And part of the assignment for the class to have for next week, and I've asked them to work on it the last 2 or 3 weeks, is I want you to craft your own personal value statement, mission statement, and vision statement in that order. I want you to craft them in that order. And I gave them a few tips and a few guidelines. And now we're talking about, digging into what it's really about. What are you really about? Okay. And so I showed them a little clip on vision from a former student I had who's just the bomb about this. I mean, she really gets it in a big way. And one of the things she talked about in crafting a vision statement, for instance, if I went around the room and asked every one of you where you want to be in the next couple of 3 years, well, guess what? You told me this morning. As we went around and talked, every one of you told me what you really locked in on. But here's the kicker. What if you really sat down and said, okay, that's what I want, and I want to be right there in 2 years. Almost no one wants to put a timeline to it, because what does a timeline call for?
Action.
I got to do something. It calls for the hardest thing, and that's accountability. It calls for action. You act. Oh, you mean I got to do? You mean I got to do this? Oh yeah, you got to do it. But okay, here's when you got to do it by. Here's when you got to do it by. That metric is so important. Having that accountability in place is just really an important piece of all of this.
And again, one of the things, Maxie, we probably ought to do is have a separate. Maxie and I got together for a couple of years, and just every week we'd talk. And it was, again, asking these kinds of questions. What do you do? What do you want to do? What are you trying to achieve? What does success look like? And we were exploring a lot of different things that have come down to what we're doing now. So what we're going to do is, Maxie, is that all of this stuff and all of these trails and all of the slides I'm not going to get to and all of this, we're going to just start having some hangouts, and we'll put them on YouTube so y'all be able to follow up and not miss out on anything. Anybody in the listening audience out there can sit up. When they tell you, listen, don't interrupt. I'm the world's worst at that. I mean, I've tried to learn. I get impulsive. What is it? Just rather than leap in and start commenting on what they've said, thinking that you already know the answer, I write down, and every time I go into a meeting, yesterday, I write down at the upper right-hand side of my sheet of paper, shut up and listen. So when I impulsively want to jump in and say something, I realize I've asked them a question, let them answer. That's what drives me crazy about some of these television interviewers. I mean, they just, you've invited somebody on your show, let them talk. So anyway, don't interrupt. Listen for frustration. I talked about that before, because within frustration is opportunity. Because if you can help somebody solve their problem, then, first of all, it's good. It's the golden rule to be able to help people. But it also just means that there's a market out there. And so then you start using lean canvas, and then get out of the office and find out what's happening in the market. Do other people have the same frustration? Is there something that will scale? Number 9, ask questions to clarify. I had a guy who worked for a club court named Jim Macy, the smartest guy I ever met, but he would be in a meeting, and he would say, I don't know what that means. And people would say, Macy, you're just being difficult again. I mean, everybody knows what that means. And he says, well, tell me what that means to you. And they would say it, and somebody across the table invariably would say, no, it doesn't. It means this. So all of a sudden, the words that we think are what we're talking about aren't always communicated properly. So get the definition. It's also things would break out into an environment, and people would be shouting back and forth at each other, and he'd say, well, hey, if I get the facts, we can just sit here and have a lot more fun arguing about it. So get the facts, find out what's going on, get clarification of things that are going on for good and for bad that you can help with. If you believe you can help, offer to do so. Give value before you ask for value. Now, you can't help everybody out there. There's a lot of need. But at the same time, if you believe it's something that you have a contact, you trust what they have, you don't think they're going to embarrass you, then you may be able to help them very easily with just a phone call or suggestion they talk to somebody or look at some website. Should they offer to help you, be specific. In other words, what I mean by that is, if everybody's your customer, nobody's your customer. What you've got to do is narrow down the target market, the niche. And the way people do that for me is they say they've got this issue, they'd like to meet somebody. You know, everybody's the market. Well, I don't know everybody. Tell me who it is specifically. Give me a name, or at least give me a company. Tell me who it is, but better name. It may be that I was best man in that guy's wedding that he's trying to get to. And again, if I trust them, if I don't think they're going to embarrass me, I may well introduce them. So be specific. Then after you get an introduction, never ever embarrass a conduit by failing to perform. I mean, how badly would that look if you had managed, somebody's done the ultimate question for you and referred you to a best friend. They're transferring not only a telephone number, they're transferring validity, trust, authority, reputation, that if you don't perform, you're going to look like badly in the eyes of that person that you sent them to. So give more than expected. And then finally, report progress. There's nothing worse than I hate when I tell somebody they ought to go talk to somebody, and then I never hear from them. And it may be that they weren't able to get through, or they gave them the wrong phone number, or they're wildly successful. I'm not trying to get a fee out of it. I just like to know that I help them out. So don't leave them hanging like that. Okay, so in conclusion, if you get your marketing right, selling becomes unnecessary. I mean, that sounds outrageous, doesn't it? I mean, can you imagine if you get your marketing right that you don't have to sell? It's unnecessary. It's superfluous. Well, that was said by Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker is the world's greatest consultant. He died a few years ago, but he was the one who influenced so many people like Jack Welch. He told Welch how to be able to make GE do what it did. Jim Collins, who wrote the book Good to Great, Built to Last, Drucker was their mentor. So, but his point on that was Drucker never wrote it out of his 50 or 60 books. A book on marketing. He wrote it. He said marketing is core to the company, and then if you're doing all the right things and showing competitive advantage and how you're uniquely, then you don't have to sell.
And Jim, just let me say, if y'all want to read a book, a really good book, because really good books are hard to come by. Okay, The Definitive Drucker is as good as it gets. This guy was so far ahead of his time, it wasn't even funny. Wasn't even funny. Everything he's talking about in that book is so relevant today in this new internet age, it's not even.
Exactly. So you want to know what they want. What's in their head? So you do that through questions. You believe that, it's the idea here is that how do you do what Drucker said? What's the process for doing that and not having to sell? Again, number one, you know what they want through questions. So you understand thoroughly what's going on. You believe you've got what they have. Whatever product you've got, you either have it or you can bend it or slice it and dice it in a way that you can deliver it specifically to them, and so that you believe it. You have it in your heart. Then you have competitive advantage, so that it's not just a commodity product. It's truly a unique situation that has happened here, but they don't know that yet. So, but you've got to be able to explain the features and benefits. What's in it for them? So it's a twist on the what's in it for me. It's what's in it for them. What is it that it does, and why is it, and what's the why? You can address resistance. If you're able to do these things, that you can, if they come back and say, yeah, but, and you are able to change that, then you're going to be able to sell something. So I was just talking yesterday with one of our partners about that, that the first olive out of the jar is always the tough one. If they've never done it before, in the medical industry as an example, it's so easy for people to say, yeah, but it's not going to work here. Well, it's just a matter of tailoring it a little bit. 95% of it will work. You just got to tailor the last 5%. They don't see that. So how do you get through that? Is you create videos, you create hypotheses, you put a minimum viable product out there so they can see that. Lots of ways that they can do that to be able to resist that. But, unfortunately, my analogy about the olives no longer seems to work because they mitigated that problem by putting wide-mouthed olive jars out there. So the first is not always difficult, but you get what I mean. And then finally, what's in it for you. What's in it for me? I mean, so it's got to get there. I mean, you're going to, subsidies are evil. I mean, if people are pouring money into something that's losing, Devlin used to say that at Club Corp. We had, if it's having to be subsidized from outside and not carrying its own weight, eventually it's going to starve out. It's not sustainable. We used to see this in golf courses. They would always be, the family didn't want to support it after the person died. So anyway, what's in it for you? How is it I can measure it? What is it if I do all this work? what kind of value has it created for me? So the summary, be seeking first to establish a relationship before a transaction. Your business will be more successful and my life will be more rewarding. So if you have this, a lot more fun, you make some great relationships, you help introduce people into a team and a project so that they're able to have fun doing what they do. Just it's the golden cycle that benefits everybody. So I ask you, what's your frustration? What's happening in your life that's frustrating that you see something that I do might be helpful to you? So I always tell my former students and my students, I'm open for you for the rest of your careers because, feel free to ping me on Google+, circle me. If you got a question, let me know you're a JBU student, and I'll be more than happy to help you because what I teach you today is going to be obsolete in a few weeks.
Oh, by the way, it's free. It's free.
All right. I could go through these. This is a book I mentioned earlier. We've talked a lot about this, but this would just show that the things that I'm talking about are now very much in the forefront in the web. We were going to do an exercise. I'll just talk you through it for a second. Go ahead and put it back on Classroom. Maxie and I are looking at doing something that right now, just a working title, is called Cause. I'm still working on the title. So, but anyway, I'm going to get around here. It's basically working with nonprofits to help them. It's Cause Clearinghouse. Excuse me. Cause Clearinghouse is what we're talking about, and it's to be able to help the nonprofits because there's a voracious need out there for people to be able to get help. I mean, it's just. I had a friend tell me that their company supplier was getting 25 asks a week, and it was overwhelming. How do you decide who gets what? Another friend got a $1 million ask, and he didn't make anywhere close to that. So there's a real problem, and yet the nonprofits have so much need. So I put together a lean canvas on this, talked with Maxie about it, and I thought what they needed was social media to be able to really understand this. That if they had an event, as an example, that they would work with, they get the sponsors in there. But part of the problem with the sponsorships were that it was only promoted in the community, local, and then it was maybe a flyer that had a logo on it, or it was on a website that nobody watched, or they may put up a YouTube that 300 people might see. There were no legs, there were no eyeballs that would see that, and so what they needed to be able to do was to spread that out further, and that if we were able to work with them from a marketing standpoint to be able to get the word out further out into the world, how could that help? Well, Jim Shankle's not going to be able to cause anything like that to happen. But what they could do, and we could show them how to do it, is to work with the social media departments of the sponsors to be able. I mean, they're always looking for something to write about, to talk about the company. They get tired of writing about the latest menu or something that happened the other day to their CEO. I mean, wouldn't it be greater to be able to say, hey, we support Razorfest, Champions for Kids, Razorfest, and they get to do all of this stuff. And one of the things we did at Razorfest, had Ronnie helped me with this, and his team helped me with Mobile Hangouts on Air. We were down there, there's a bunch of videos that I've got on the website, where we were interviewing people. What is your passion? Why do you support this? Well, all of that content can be sliced and diced, and the suppliers say, we're supporting kids. And it goes, so instead of Northwest Arkansas, their return on investment ought to be huge because so many more eyeballs around the world have a chance to see that Tyson Foods or whoever it is, Walmart, is doing these wonderful things for kids, and it's not just a local event. So that's one thing that we are looking at, and I put together a lean canvas and said, that's a real problem. They need to understand social media, and we can help them with that. Well, I showed it to Max, and this is typical of getting out of the building. The benefits of getting out of the building is that in my own head, hey, all of a sudden I've discovered something and a method for doing that, which I think is, the greatest thing since ice cream. Maxie took a look at it and said, yeah, they do need that, but they need 2 other things before they get that. And I said, what's that? And he said, not every one of them, but I mean, believe me, it's governance and it's management. Because you have so many people in nonprofits who are passionate about it, but those social entrepreneurs didn't get in there because they love to run numbers and keep score and have all the records right and all that. They got in because they wanted to help kids because maybe one of their kids was hurt. Or they've got a cause, a child has juvenile diabetes, and this it doesn't stay in the juvenile category, it continues on. So what we decided that we really needed to do, so I changed, I got out of the building, and Maxie and I, we're going to be getting back together and talking about, because Maxie has incredible experience when it comes to governance issues, when it comes to nonprofits, as well as the management, systems, procedures. He does that kind of advice work all the time. So we're going to blend some talents and then begin to bring in this platform and others to make that happen. If you guys want to be a part of that, I'd love to talk to you about it. Maxie, you want to talk about that? And I'm going to let you wrap it up because I'm finished with this. Stay where the camera is.
Continue here.
Yeah, I'm finished, so I'll let you wrap up.
Okay. One of the things that Jim and I spend a lot of time talking about is about how desperate the nonprofit community is for help. Okay, but the nonprofit community, for the most part, can't afford the kind of help they need. The money is simply not there. But that's why, Jim, when I took a look at the campus, I said, man, this is awesome. Okay, but here's the deal. It's great to build a resource pool for someone, but if they don't have the skill sets and the acumen or the intelligence, the information to be able to execute those resources, then what are you doing? You're giving stuff away that just disappears into a black hole. And so the common denominator there is no different than what we're doing in the classroom today. Our mission here is to provide you with more resources, but not only just to provide them to you, but show you how to use them. And that's exactly what we want to do with the nonprofit community, is to, just like when I told you earlier about the baby boomers are coming back into the workforce and they're re-educating themselves, that's what we're doing here. We're re-educating ourselves so we can turn around and re-educate everyone else. But we're really targeting specific communities. And I guess I'm biased towards the nonprofit because now I work for one. And so it is becoming even more of a passion of mine to take what I learned in my previous life and now transfer it to the nonprofit community and transfer it to the classroom. So,
and I want you to continue on, but I did want to interject. This is a multi-sided market. I mean, that we're talking about, business model, multi-sided business model, meaning that it's the nonprofits for sure, but it's also the funding agencies, the suppliers, it's volunteers, it's people that from the supplier communities, individuals, different ways of doing it. So what we've got to do is organize all of these people and find out what are their passions to be able to support this, what are the needs.
yeah.
And then if you take a look at it, you know, they're, like I said, I mean, they're frustrated because they're getting all these asks and they can't do it. And they also, a lot of them know that if they do give money to these nonprofits, a lot of it's going to be inefficiently used because they don't know how to use it best. They don't know how to keep score. They don't know how to report back. One thing Maxie does, I mean, they've got 500 volunteers. I mean, they had an amazing program where you helped you rewarded or thanked your volunteers. We're right at the time I've got to quit, Maxie, so I'm going to give you the finish. Let me just say, I appreciate so much you guys putting up with me, listening to me. We go off on so many tangents. One thing that you can do is when you can go to Google Plus and see where you can actually go to YouTube, you can make comments in there in that area. So I'm going to be around until mid-afternoon because I'm really intrigued with what Max is going to be talking about here this afternoon. So I'm going to stay for a little while. But the way you ask your questions is you can ask me personally, but you can also go into the comment area for this event and ask questions, and I'll go back in there when I have, as I have time, and I'll address those comments in there. And who knows, we may end up needing to put together some videos that address some of these questions. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
Okay, are we ready to close this?